Okay, so good. Is it
Wednesday.
July?
Wednesday.
What's
First.
that? When's still? Oh, it's only the 1st. Okay, I guess it's not July. Okay, so we're getting near the 4th. So one of the things I say to my class, I say, does anybody have a word that's kind of their go-to word? And a few of them do, many don't, but a certain word can really be a lifeline. For me, the word is perspective. So when I developed that word, it was the first time I went to Ethiopia. And you realize when you talk to a shoeshine boy back then, and he was about 10, and you'd ask him what happens if he doesn't shine any shoes that day. There's 12 people that don't eat. So it puts your life and your problems, it reframes them in all kinds of ways. So I was thinking, I have a sick brain that defaults to all these things. So the Copernican revolution in the Middle Ages was really interesting because up until he came along, this astronomer, everybody thought the Earth and man, of course, was the center of the universe. Everything rotated around man, the arrogance of that. And he discovered that it was actually the sun and not the earth. And that was kind of shocking to people. The Vatican didn't like that too much. A lot of people didn't like that too much. There were heresy trials, all kinds of things. But basically, he caused people to rethink what the central organizing principles of life are. That's what you and I are being forced to do now, is kind of rethink what really is important, what really matters, what we really value. And so in order to do that, you have to see life with new glasses. And sometime, as Father Richard Rohr, the Franciscan monk, friend of some of ours, said, the only two things that really change us in fundamental ways is great suffering and great love. And so what we need to be about is using this moment to really develop the practices that can help us get a different perspective, to move from us-centric universe to it's much different than all that there's a lot of other people suffering and hurting. And my last thought on that was, some of you studied, and read the diaries of Anne Frank and all, but it was interesting to look at Amsterdam during the Nazi occupation. Literally, there were thousands of Jews that were harbored in homes, and they were either in the attic or the basement. And imagine this, we complain about, I'm tired, I need another Netflix kind of series or whatever. And they had to be totally silent for 4 years, many times, or else they'd be dead. So again, keep our problems in perspective. This is a hard time. The ambiguity is killing us and the uncertainty. And yet, it's a moment to really reflect and be grateful. So with that, we have Coach Dar with us today. She does a lot with CEOs, business leaders, and athletes, helping high-performance people really understand themselves and understand how to get more out of their life and how to be in greater peace with themselves. So she's going to share a few thoughts on meditation and reflection and mindfulness, because I think a lot of us have some pretty crazy ideas about that. Sometimes we think, wow, I'm going off into crazy land and all that, joining a guru, which I am seriously thinking about in India, but that's another story. But anyway, with that, let me turn it over to Dar, and I will tip my hat to her.
Thank you, Doug. Doug, you always help us kind of get in such a better state mentally. I mean, your humor alone will do it. Thanks so much for allowing me to take time with you all today and for jumping on the call. And I just wanted to start with, I am a therapist by background, and I do coach many high performers. So usually chairmen, boards, CEOs, professionals, but also athletes, and I am the one that's usually helping people with mental capital and human capital. So that being said, I'm often thrown into sometimes very adverse challenges and helping people through challenges and trying to help them gain that emotional neutrality and stability that's needed, or helping them with their overall well-being so that they could show up better and lead and or perform. And so often that really comes down to, what is your mental state and how are you when you show up? Where is your mind at that moment? How do you respond and not react? And I often relate this to when I'm working with the athletes in the middle of a game, and I have a player, I remember a player at one point got a technical and came into the locker room. I waited, he went into the locker room, obviously was kind of fired up from the call. And I walk in the locker room and he's on the bike and he's getting out his energy. And I walked in and he goes, "I know, coach, I know. I needed to respond, not react." And I said, "That's right." And he goes, I'm being mindful now. I said, "Well, good. Now you just need to carry that back over when you get in the game." So it's, we learn through, we're going to get triggered a lot. And, you know, oftentimes our family is our trigger. So with COVID, we're all in our house. And sometimes we can get triggered because we're not getting the space that we need or being able to reset. So meditation and mindfulness also helps us with the abilities of decreasing our emotional triggers and finding out what that is. The other part in leading in business is it's emotional intelligence when we practice meditation and mindfulness. It really is about increasing our awareness. And I do so much around, like I said, mental capital, which is building emotional intelligence. And we hear this a lot, but truly, are you able to be aware of the state and the energy that you bring into your home, into your boardroom, into your organization? And so your energy introduces yourself before you even open your mouth. When we walk into a room, our presence is being felt. And so I ask people to be aware of, what is their presence that is being felt when you walk in? Is your presence one that makes people feel more anxious? Does it make people feel like you're kind of pushing them along? Does it make people sometimes feel a little sick to their stomach because it might be anger? And I say this because when I'm working or coaching CEOs, sometimes I had a woman that she didn't realize, but when she was leading a meeting, she was doing this. And she kept tapping her hand as she's trying to lead the meeting. I said to her, "Hold up. We're on a train right now, and I feel like you're pushing us right off the track." And people, the cadence, you're already getting people when they check in, they're trying to just tell you what they need to tell you because they feel rushed and they can't settle in. She's like, "I didn't even notice that." So we just changed it to a paper clip in her hand because she needed to do emotional regulation from sensory, but she needed to calm her system down. So instead of pushing people through the meeting, people felt more calm and relaxed when they came in because she was more aware of her state. The other thing too is if you come in where you're coming from meeting to meeting or call to call, you don't realize sometimes that you're bringing your energy into that next call or meeting. So if you've ever, before COVID, when we could go from in and out of a meeting, but just take a phone call. Right now, it seems to be that we're on Zoom or phone calls back to back, and all of a sudden you're on the next call or you're on the next Zoom. And people will feel if you're bringing your attention from that last meeting into this meeting. So part of being mindful and meditating and just being aware is also practicing the power of the pause. I learned this from another great therapist. And the power of the pause is before you get on that next Zoom call, or when we can walk into our next meeting, or even when you're working in your house and you have a home that you're working, a room you're working out of, and you're going to engage back into your family, I want you to pause before you get on that next call or next Zoom or engage with someone, and just take a deep breath. And I want you to be intentional and say, how do I want to show up right now for this next call? How do I want to show up for this next Zoom meeting? How do I want to show up for when I leave this work scenario in my house and I engage back in with my family or my spouse? Because if you're not aware of it, you just bring your energy from that last meeting and people don't feel like you're present. And if we've learned anything through this, when people don't feel like they are heard or seen, or they don't feel like you are present, they mentally feel that you're not there, which could cause assumptions, which could cause people to feel like you're not present, you don't care. And we're seeing a lot of people act out right now because they don't feel, in whichever case that is, they just don't feel seen or heard. So if we could be more present with where we are, we will actually start to heal people. We will do better as leaders. We will help create and foster more solutions in the world, because people will actually feel that they are heard when they're in a meeting or on the Zoom call. Your children, your spouse feels better when they know that you're actually there and you're not, yeah, I'm here. I had a woman say to me, when we sit down to watch a movie and I'm done with the day working and we're sitting down and, you know, my husband says, I want you to actually watch the movie with me. And she says, well, I am. He says, no, you're on the phone and you're watching the movie. And she says, well, that's quality time, right? He goes, no, not for me. That's not quality time. They had done the love languages. So the point was, he was saying, I want to feel like you're actually in the same room when we're doing the same thing together. So being mindful of something that you don't think maybe is a distraction to you, but it could be a distraction to someone else. It affects relationships. I see some people smiling and laughing. They're like, oh, I've done that, or I know that feeling. And we've all been there. So what I'm saying is, if you want to enhance your relationships and you want to enhance leadership and you want to be able to enhance and us be able to actually come up with some great solutions, we actually have to start with ourselves. We have to turn inward and we have to practice. Are we mindful about the energy we're bringing into the boardroom, into our meetings, onto these Zoom calls? We are in a world that is so distracted. I started out as a therapist taking care of traumatic brain injury patients, and I actually had to write goals that patient will attend to functional tasks for 15 seconds. And then I would increase it, that patient will attend to functional tasks for 30 seconds with minimal or moderate cues. That is my exact treatment plan, one of the goals. I say that because I am actually writing that without writing patient, but client will attend to tasks for 30 seconds. Why? Because we are in a world where everything is so digitally fast that we're decreasing our attention span and we're not increasing our focus, which creates more anxiety and depression. It affects to our mental health. So the reason we wanted to have this call and this discussion is, I want you to practice mindfulness and meditation because I want us to be able to increase our mental endurance and focus and emotional coping. Because when someone interviewed me, I'm not going to say the news station because I don't know where everyone is on which news station is okay these days, but on a news station that I was interviewed, they asked me what's the difference between top leaders and even those playing sports 10 years ago to now. And I said, it is our decrease in the ability to emotionally cope and mentally endure day to day. Because imagine if we could mentally endure and sustain our focus during tasks and activities, we'd get better solutions. And imagine if we could practice emotional coping where we responded instead of reacted, where when we felt something, we didn't just tweet it, write it, say it, blurt out what is coming to our mind, but we actually, when we felt something, we processed it. And then before we said something, we are aware of saying, is this going to be helpful and useful? All of this, what sounds very common sense, obviously is not, because we're seeing what's happening in the world. And we're getting people and leaders that are now just reacting and not responding. And so emotional neutrality is what I teach peak performers to practice in the middle of adversity. And emotional neutrality is when we get into a situation that we are able to gain the information, digest it, and then do something with it. In our military, we see that often where we have to make sure that those leading our military can practice this neutrality so that they're not getting reactionary and lives are not at cost just for the sake of it. Or when we're in the middle of leading a meeting, that if we could practice emotional neutrality, we're going to be able to allow people to sustain and create better environments. And people will trust a leader that has greater emotional neutrality because they're not so reactionary. You don't want to necessarily be that person where you don't know whether they're going to fly off the handle based on something that you said, or that they're just not going to be engaged at all. It can't be too high or too low. I'm about coming in the middle on many things. So that being said, I wanted to just tee that up a little bit before I gave you some other stats, because that is why it's important. And we'll send a link to you of CEOs that have used meditation and mindfulness and what it's done for them in their world. And I honestly, years ago when I started my practice, I really didn't necessarily believe breathing and meditation would be so effective. And I was naive and I was not in a growth mindset when I thought that, because the more I practice it, the better it worked for me. And I've had 3 strokes, and I could tell you that It helped increase my neuroplasticity in my brain. It helped increase the focus, and it helped me be able to come back a lot faster because of the practices that I do every day for mindfulness and meditation on top of some other things. And that being said, meditation is when we look inward. And meditation is something that when you look inward, it's a practice of techniques that allow you to look inward. And so you could focus on your attention and awareness to create mental clarity and emotional calmness and stability, as well as increasing physical well-being. It's more of an inward focus. And when we're mindful, mindfulness is also about being aware, but it's on the outbound. It's outward focused, meaning meditation, we're going to close our eyes and we'll do a 3-minute little technique in a minute. But if I'm mindful, I'm walking around and I'm open and my eyes are open and my mind is aware of what's going on. So mindfulness is this outward awareness of your state of being and what's going on around you. Meditation is the inward focus. So sometimes people get that a little bit confused. What's the difference, Dar? And so I just wanted to say that. And what meditation is not some, like Doug said, it's not about getting involved in some cult. Meditation is not against any religion. Meditation truly is for the physical well-being. And so, sometimes people feel, oh, if I meditate, I'm going to be chanting maybe to some God or something or channeling in something. And what is this woo-woo kind of stuff? And I want you to know this is a scientifically proven tool. No different than it would be a tool of going to work out. You're working out your mind. You're doing something that's going to help your mind and your well-being. So think of this as a physical, mental exercise that's going to help your overall well-being. It is not something that you're going to channel or bring in anything that you don't want to. It's truly about helping you. And so I wanted to just give some benefits. Meditation has shown to reduce PTSD by 73% when it was practiced on a regular basis. And that number actually continues to increase the more that we get more data of those that are using it long term. We've seen that if it will increase your attention span after only 4 days of doing it consistently. So remember where I just said one of the challenges that we're finding is that we are losing our attention span, which means we can't come up with effective solutions in our companies and our businesses because we're not attending and we're not able to focus as long as we want to. Well, after 4 days of practicing this, it's been proven that you're able to attend more. In schools, we've noticed that there's been a decrease of school suspensions by 45% in a few studies that we were able to look back at. We've seen that people have decreased their detentions. We've seen that children were able to focus in class. They had more control of their emotions when they practiced meditation. It boosts energy by 60% when practiced daily. And so we are in a world where we have a deprivation in our energy, that we have decreased levels of energy. And if we would meditate, we increase our energy. And when people meditate, they have shown studies in the brain that it's equivalent sometimes to getting 2 extra hours of sleep when we've meditated for 20 minutes or longer twice a day. So if you are feeling like you can't get as many hours maybe at night, you can meditate during the day twice a day for 20 minutes and it'll be as if you've slept 2 extra hours. We've also seen that cases of insomnia have gone down when people have practiced meditation, and you could do a meditation just before bed, which will help you get into a deeper sleep. Because it's more about getting in your REM and deep sleep than necessarily the hours, because hours are different based on your body type. And I know people will say generally we need you to get 8 hours, but there are people that could get less if they have deeper sleep and they've meditated throughout the day. Everything's got to be customized to you. It relieves anxiety and depression. And that we noticed that if people consistently meditated for 6 to 9 months, 2/3 of people in a study were decreased their anxiety, and that were able to get off some of their medications as a result of it. So we've seen so much around the anxiety and depression with meditation. It's literally a free drug that helps you have your best well-being and feel better. One other study by Harvard had done a study to show that meditation for 30 minutes a day increased gray matter in the hippocampus of the brain, which the hippocampus of the brain helps us with attention, focus, and memory and learning. So if we know that it increases gray matter, and some patients that are have Alzheimer's in their family, if they started practicing meditation, they increase their gray matter, which helps with especially some memory and new learning. In the workplace, we saw that when many companies are coming out, but in this study that it increased employer productivity by 120%, which then they saw a decrease of absenteeism by 85%, which obviously increased profits. So more and more companies are putting meditation, allowing people to take breaks for meditation because it increased their productivity when they were at work, and it helped them feel connected to other coworkers as well. I already shared what it's been doing in schools, and I just wanted to see. One other thing is meditation helps build resilience. It helps build emotional intelligence because you're aware. And thanks to meditation, there's been a lot of executives that are reporting that because they practice it consistently, not only did they feel better, but they were able to come in stressful situations and be able to lead their teams more effectively because they were more calm, focused, and they had a better sense of well-being, and they were less reactionary, which actually increased trust of the people that work with them. And you know that if the people that work with you trust you, they will stick with you longer because they believe that your attention is more pure and authentic. And so if you could show up and be more present, you'll be able to lead more effectively. I have a couple more notes. I already talked about focus. Oh, increases creativity. So we're constantly looking for that stroke of genius. And have you ever noticed when you're in the car or you're in the shower, you have your best ideas? They just start to come to you. Well, it's because there's not a bunch of things vying for your attention. That in that meditative state, in that free-flowing consciousness where there's not a lot of things, that's when you have that moment, that stroke of genius. So we want to just show that it increases creativity and that you'll have better chances for increasing solutions and finding. Right now, we need meditation and mindfulness more than ever because we have to find solutions to certain things, but we're getting distracted by a lot of the noise in the media. So I just wanted to share that because oftentimes we're looking for how can we find those solutions. Well, it's going to be when we actually get calm and we listen. And listening is where you're able to hear other people, but also hear what you need. So when you're trying to figure out as a leader, what's the next best thing I could do, or how can I help my family or my team, you have to go and get quiet. Because if you're not getting quiet, you're not going to be able to hear what it is that's needed, both for yourself and for others. And so often we talk that prayer is talking to God, meditation is waiting and listening for what the answer is. And so that could be for anything. Even when we're going and we're talking to our team and saying, this is what we need, but then does everyone get a chance to go and get quiet to then hear back what actually can happen? What are the next steps? No, we often rush, get on another call, do something next, and we never get that time to actually stop after we just went from a meeting or just digested information and just took in and said, well, what does this mean? How does this apply? What can we do with this now? And so when I've ever had to write some of my speeches that I have to go and speak on, or I've had to present to someone, I've had to go and get quiet and get away from everyone so that I could actually listen to, after all the information I digested, what might be the best way to present this information. And if it's too loud, your brain cannot focus and be able to give you the ideas that you need. And also for your well-being, I just want to say this, but sometimes if you don't get quiet, you can't tune into what your own body needs. So for your own health, do you need more sleep? Is it that you need to balance something? Is there something that your body's trying to tell you, but because you're going, you don't actually feel it until something's too late? And after having a few strokes now, I've really had to get in tune to what my body has needed. And I've really practiced and made this a morning mindset. I have a morning routine that I do every morning for prayer and meditation, and then I get quiet and I have a journal in front of me. And if something comes, that's where some of my ideas have come in that morning time. I write it. If not, I just say a prayer and then I let the day be. But I was aware of what was needed to start my day. I can't give what I don't have. We all can't give what we don't have. So if you are needing to be present and aware and be the best leader that you can, or the best spouse or the best friend or sibling, you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And then as you go about your day, I want you to just be mindful of what's around you. Happiness does not come from Well, let me say this. Happiness is also, the word, and happiness comes from something has to happen for you to be happy. Happening, that word, something has to happen in order to be happy, and that will set you up sometimes for failure. And it doesn't necessarily bring you joy. But when you're mindful of the things that can make you grateful, that will bring you joy. And when you look up and you look around, you could be mindful of all the great things that we have around us. And you could be grateful for what's going on, even in the middle of adversity. What is it teaching us? What can we still be grateful for right now? When I moved out here to Arizona, I could not believe the mountains and the sunsets. And oftentimes I just needed to look up when I was driving, and I would be in awe of God's creation, just in awe of what was happening. And so this last part before I take you into this exercise is I had a CEO that I was working with, and we were about to go to a very big meeting for them. And I could see that they were not present, that they were anxious, that they were in a very reactionary mode. And I just pulled off. I saw a park in the distance, and I pulled off. I said, "Get out of the car. We're going to the park." And they're like already anxious. They said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Trust me." I said, "Right now, in order to get you in the right mindset and to be able to get you to be at your best, I need to reframe your mind and your brain right now." I said, "There's a bench right over there." I said, "We're going to walk over to the bench. I want you to take your shoes off, and I want us to just sit down. Just give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes is not going to make us late." So we sat down on the bench. They took their shoes off. Their feet were rooted into the grass, feeling even the grass on their feet. And I said, "I want you to sit here. And I want you to listen. I want you to tell me all the sounds that you hear right now." And it took a minute before I could get them actually present in the moment. And they said, I actually hear a high school band, because they knew a high school was over there. "I hear the band playing. I haven't heard a band play in years," and a marching band. And then I said, "What else do you hear?" And they said, "Birds." And I could actually hear the rustling of some of the trees. And as we sat there, I said, "How does the grass feel on your feet?" And they said, "I haven't taken my shoes off and walked in the grass in a really long time, because I'm usually in my shoes in the office all day and night. And I'm actually not even outside getting the sunlight." And the more I got them to be aware, he started to cry. And I said, "What's going on?" He said, "I haven't taken time to just be present and even just be aware of what's all around us." So I get your point. You're trying to just get me aware to be present and enjoy just even the setting around us. I said, "You're going to walk so much better into this meeting right now just by you shifting your state right now. You were in a very reactionary mode. Now you could respond." So we reframed and reset the brain so he could be more aware as he walked in, and it was a game changer. And it just took 5 minutes. So I don't know what this is going to look like for you. And by the way, is optimal 20 minutes a day, twice a day? Of course. But does that mean that that's where we're going to get to? No. I would just want you to find micro moments where you could become mindful in your day, where today you could just be more aware of where what your state is. If you need to shift it, what's the energy you're bringing into meetings, how you're showing up for others. Are you listening and being present? Because you're going to allow people to feel heard and seen. And that is huge for healing and connection. And you're going to get more effective results, both for yourself and others. And then try meditation, even if it's just 1 minute. There are apps out there that you could do. You could do guided. You could just do sound. We'll put a list of apps you can use. But I just encourage you to try this. Just make this a part of your practice every day and see what the benefits are. You know, there are so many scientific benefits now that it's almost that you can't ignore it. And we're more often open to just taking a pill to just say, okay, let this pill do what it's supposed to do. And not that I'm knocking any medicine, but I'm saying, what if this was another way that allowed you to show up to be a better person and leader in this world? And all it took was you to sit there for a few minutes and try meditation and mindfulness and be aware of your state. Because if we're not getting aware of how we show up as human beings and working on our emotional intelligence, then we're not going to help others. And people will not be able to trust us if we can't even do our own work ourselves. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just 3 minutes of just closing your eyes. I'm going to try to play some music into the speaker, but even if you can't hear it fully, just even closing our eyes for 3 minutes and just getting present into the state and just hearing some cues that I'm going to do. I just want you to see how this makes you feel. And it's not going to be a game changer today, but if you practice this every day, I bet it'll start to help you. So if everyone could just get comfortable wherever they're sitting. And as you get comfortable, I want you to close your eyes, because what I want you to do is go inward. I want you to go inward to feel what you're feeling and not be worried about what you look, or no one's watching you on Zoom right now, and just be present in the moment. So as you sit here, I just want you to take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale out your mouth. And inhale through your nose and exhale out your mouth. And the reason we're doing this is because I just want you to get any heaviness out of your body. Inhale in and exhale out. As you just do that consistently, you'll start to take it where you'll inhale through your nose. And if it starts to feel more comfortable to exhale through your nose, you can do that, or you can continue to exhale through your mouth. And I want you to just get comfortable to how your body is starting to feel right now. Can you start to relax it while you're sitting in your chair? Can you rest your shoulders and allow your shoulders to drop a little bit further down from your neck? Can you relax your neck and your back? Relaxing any tension you might feel in your chest. Just even opening your chest up a little bit more so you can receive more love and relaxation. And then go ahead and relax your hips, and your legs, and your feet. And if you're feeling tension anywhere, going to that place. When you breathe in, relax. And you exhale, and you release the tension. And if it helps because you're having thoughts come in and out and you're thinking of too many things, you could breathe in and think the word. Breathe in, relaxation. Exhale, tension. You could say those words to you to stay focused on something if that helps. Otherwise, I just want you to sit here and just breathe naturally and calmly. And then this last part, I would love for you to just take your hand and place it over your heart. And if there's ever someone that you could think of right now that's ever been there for you, that's given you the most amount of love, that has made you always feel so incredibly special in your life, that if you could thank them right now, you would. I just want you to place that person in your mind, place them in your heart, thank them for always being there and for showing you the love. And breathing in and breathing out. And I want you to smile as you thank them. And relax your hand now. And we're going to take one last breath in together, and we're going to breathe in. And we're going to breathe out. And I just want you to start to open your eyes when you're ready. And just be grateful in the moment. And so that was actually, I did it a little bit more. It was 4.5 minutes. So That was just 4.5 minutes of just trying to get present. And the reason I did the exercise at the very end, which is bringing someone that you actually love and were grateful for, is because it reminds us that there is always something to be grateful for, and that there was someone that loved you when you needed to be loved. So to be that person for someone else today, and be there and show up for someone, for yourself and others. And that we forget sometimes when we start to get anxious or we're in the middle of adversity. And that sometimes when we do meditation, it's about just, if you can't get your thoughts to be in the moment, that you just focus on a word. So it could be, let me think about relaxation and letting go of the tension, or let me think about love or abundance or joy or creativity today. You could say whatever word that you want to say for the moment to get your thoughts to actually focus in on that and not focus in on something that's making you anxious. So that's just a brief little journey for us learning about mindfulness and meditation. I hope it helped you reset and just get a little bit more clear today, and maybe even just feel a little bit calmer and relaxed. So I want to open it up right now. If anyone's ever done any mindfulness or meditation, or have had any success with this, or just wanted to share why it's important, we just wanted to offer that and open it up. So you could just jump on and speak if there's something that you want to share on this. Has anyone had any practice with this?
I have. I'll tell you, I started doing, yoga probably about 25 years ago. When I started my business, I thought, oh my gosh, it's too slow for me. And I remember going to a yoga, it was a community yoga with a group of women. I had a major proposal due, and this yoga teacher decided she was going to explain meditation. We had to form a circle with a raisin. Each person had a raisin, and in the center of the circle was a candle. And I remember staring at this candle through the raisin going, oh my gosh, I have a major proposal to do, and I'm staring at this frickin' raisin. But I was so focused. And when I came home, I was just like, I'll just do an all-nighter. I got that proposal done in an hour and then turned it in, and I won the job. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was
That's
like, what
amazing.
is this? What is this focus? And so I've continued to do meditation and yoga because of it, because it really does help you focus.
Lisa, what do you think it was that helped you then?
The raisin? No.
Yeah.
It really, the focusing. I mean, I was so focused on being mad, just focused on that raisin, but I was so focused, and it was like it cleared my mind. It actually opened my mind to think when I got back.
Right.
So
Right.
it was exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
anyway. Sure. And
Anyone
thank
else?
you. Beautiful, beautiful thing you did today. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Hi, my name is Arno Sangier, and Rajiv, this is my first meeting here, and thank you for...
We can't, Arno, are you able to, we couldn't hear you.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry about that. First meeting here, and I'm Rajiv and Seth were kind enough to invite me. I'm a neurosurgeon, and that's what I practice. It was very interesting to hear you talk about the traumatic brain injury subjects that you've had, and I have had quite a few experiences with people who should not be alive but pulled through, and it is an amazing thing how the brain can actually channel in to give your body life. And as I've been in practice for now over 16 years, and I'm learning that in order for you to achieve any kind of health, you'll have to be mindful about the recovery and about your body in general. And Rajiv and I have been talking with the Minds Untapped group in regards to autism. I really like the idea that medications don't necessarily are not necessarily the answer to all problems that we have. Although in this fast-paced society, that's what we really want, to get a pill and everything is better. I do think of the minds and the brain in terms of a spectrum, because all of us are on some sort of spectrum. I truly believe that we trying to adjust into the two standard variations of what's acceptable in our society at this present moment. Because right now, if we acted the way we act today, if we acted the same way 100 years ago or 50 years ago, may have not been acceptable, and vice versa. So we're trying to adjust that spectrum as we go and learn from our expectations. So it's a really interesting thing. Lastly, and I'm taking too much time, it's really a close to me kind of subject, but I do believe that the body has that capacity to heal. The mind has the capacity to heal itself and to heal the body that it is attached to.
Yes.
In this age of AI, we are going to be faced with artificial intelligence that has a potential of us not being able to tell the difference between human and non-human. And if I'm a robot and you're talking to me and I make the same errors that a human will make, and you don't realize that I'm not a human, am I really not a human? So if you listen to Lex Friedman's podcasts, it is an interesting discussion in terms of consciousness and how that works in the grand scheme of things, and are we really living? What kind of life are we living, and is it just a simulation? And if it is, what's the next simulation? What is the next simulation going to be?
I can't thank you enough for sharing. And I mean, especially adding, your neuroscience and about the validity, and validation to, I do believe that we can heal ourselves. And I do believe that there's so much that we can do by going inward. And so I really appreciate you sharing today. Thank you. And being on.
I actually had an experience with meditation. And in fact, the way I got started with it, we were in the thick of like the worst season of our lives in that time where like everything hit the fan and things were really bad. And I went in and spoke with my minister and he said, you need to start meditating. And I thought, who the hell has time to meditate right now? I'm in the middle of a crisis. Like this isn't going to happen, buddy. And he hands me a book and he's like, no, you need to meditate. And I will say I didn't know what else to do except to follow direction from really authoritative people at the time because it was such a bad crisis. So I'm like, all right, fine, I'll follow the directions. I just want to say it was very hard in the beginning. So I'd say if you're going to attempt to do it, whatever you do, forgive yourself for what comes into your mind. Because in the beginning, when you sit down to be alone with yourself, you're going to flood all of these thoughts of the presentation and the to-do list and what you need at the grocery store and all of that. And so it's sort of like admit that it's there and let it slide out. 8 minutes in the beginning was like a lot of time, but then over time, like every week I'd add a minute and then I'd add another minute. And to be honest with you, it saved me. I mean, it really did keep me from reacting most days and being able to focus on what needed to get done and what was at hand. The other thing I wanted to just say really quickly is you recentered that group before their presentation. I find that kids need that recentering a lot too. And so when we were going through this particularly terrible time, my daughters would have these adrenaline rushes that they didn't understand because they were learning and growing or whatever. And I found that 10 jumping jacks recentered them almost every time. Wait, before we have this conversation, I can see you're super revved up, like do the 10 jumping jacks, or you say, grass on the feet or whatever it is. I mean, for them, they needed something active. I think everybody needs something a little bit customized.
Yep.
But when you see those kids reacting or acting out. And a lot of times it's their release.
Mm-hmm.
And we all need that. So anyway, I thought, I mean, of course, I'm nodding my head the whole time as you were talking, because I'm, you know, you're speaking my language. But anyway, I just, that was
Thanks
my
so much,
experience with
Wendy.
meditation.
And to your point, I absolutely agree, because everyone's sensory needs are different. So someone may need to recenter, doing something different sensory for them. So it needs to be customized for you. It's your own toolbox, but knowing what tools you could put in there is important. Doug, you're on mute. You're on mute, Doug. Oh, he took himself off. I think he hit
Am I
off.
good? Oh, what happened here? Oh,
Where are you?
Am I still alive? Okay.
You took yourself off video, though.
Okay.
There
I'm
you
all
are.
back now. So I was going to mention that every January in PathNorth, we have a 2.5-day experience at a Franciscan monastery where the monks can still chant in that ancient tradition, but we spend 2.5 days in silence. And there's a number of you that are on the call that have been there, a number of you that are terrified to even think that you could do this. But for 2.5 days, you're there with a group of people, but you're alone. And we eat together, we see each other, but we don't talk. And it is another way of getting into this, because you're forced to really start to understand solitude and quiet is your friend. And I would urge some of you who've never tried that to join us. It's very, very powerful. And everybody gets a journal, and there's one quotation on page 1, and that's it. The rest of it is for you to journal, but it's by Blaise Pascal, and it says, the fundamental problem of a person is never learning to be quiet within 4 walls. And so anyway, that's just one thing that might be an aspirational goal for some of you. So Dar, I guess any last word before we close this up? Thank you for doing it.
Oh, thank you for allowing me and everyone to be open to trying something. So I just say be open to experiencing this. And even if you want to start with the mindfulness of Doug, I agree with you. If we could just learn to find those quiet times to get centered and find what we need for ourselves, and then practicing being able to be more mindful of listening to others. That's a form of mindfulness. So we need to be able to listen so that we know how to respond. And I mean, it was great. We just had a neurosurgeon on the call, because there you go. You just got from a scientific benefit. It really does help the brain. So this is something, if anyone has more questions about this or anything, they could reach out to me. And if we ever want to do more of this or on another call, please let me know. But it's so important to try to practice this every day. You'll see exceptional benefits.
Thank you, Dar. Dar's senior fellow with us, and we really appreciate her being in our midst.
Thank you.
One thing I'm always curious to me about how you start any practice, because, you know, for example, I've always noticed you always meet somebody that's ready to start a program like dieting, prayer, or walking. You rarely meet somebody that says, well, 2 years ago I did this and hey, it was great. You know, it's so let me just give you a thought on how to start the change process. I think it's to start really small. So with meditation, I would urge some of you just try to be still for 1 minute. That's all. Don't get crazy. Or if you want to start an exercise program, just walk around the block. Don't try to run a marathon. Don't do anything crazy. Just do little things like that. And I'd urge you to think of something like in this, when you meditate, just have a go-to word, you know, that you, or a phrase. You know, mine is be still and know. So when your mind starts to wander, you just think about that and you repeat it, and you know it gets you back to the center. One of our friends who's not on the call, big hedge fund guy, 3 years ago went on our silent retreat. He does this now 20 minutes twice a day. And his wife called me up after the retreat about a month later and said, what happened to him? He's a totally different person. And then she came back the next year because he just became a different leader. And at 2:30 every day, everybody knew in his firm, he was shutting the door and he was going to just, meditate for 20 minutes. It sounds weird if you haven't done it, and I'm a total failure at this, but I continue to do this.
It's about
Okay,
progress, not perfection.
Exactly. Well, I don't have any problem with that program. The perfection's another thing. Okay, so let me turn it to Seth. I want to also mention we're going to be announcing something next week. Going to call a master class series where we're going to start with a number of leaders, and we'll have a limited class, and it's going to be 1 hour with somebody. And I'll just give you a hint at who the first 5 are going to be. Warren Buffett's son, Peter Buffett. It's going to be entitled Growing Up Buffett. It'll probably be limited to 15 people, but the power of the story you were born into and how that shapes your whole narrative. Then we'll have Bill Weldon, former chairman of Johnson & Johnson, who was in the room during the crazy Tylenol scandal. How do you make sense of chaos when everything's exploding and one of the most iconic companies in the world is about ready to go under? Then we have Danny Meyer, who's the top restaurateur in New York. He took Shake Shack public, has 30 James Beard Award. He's going to talk about what it's like to be in the business he's in during this craziness and to be an innovator. They don't tip in his restaurants. Dar's going to do something on resilience. And then the last one is, maybe that's the group we're going to start with, I think. And then we're going to have more of these, but it'll be very limited. So when we announce them, sign up quick, because we want to make sure you have a chance to really interact with these people on these various subjects. And if you have thoughts from it. So with that, let me turn it over to Seth, and he will say whatever he wants to say before we say Happy 4th.
Thank you, Doug. So next week on Tuesday, July 7th at 7 p.m., we'll have a next gen call with Coach Dar. It'll be the group from earlier this year who did it, and they'll individually be contacted. And of course, if anyone has questions or wants any more information, they can contact Gloria. Then we'll have our community call next week, Wednesday, July 8th at 1:30 p.m. And then we have a Morocco Experience Reunion cocktail hour scheduled for Thursday, July 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Invitation to follow.
Great. So with that, thank you all for hanging out with us. Thank you again, Dar. And have a great weekend, okay? Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you to all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Happy